Gaza Strip since October 7th. Entire neighborhoods have been razed to the ground, leaving Gazans without water, food or electricity.
Yesterday, Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, said that, or in a press conference with Egyptian Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry, that the Palestinian civilians need desperately humanitarian aid.
For nearly 2 weeks, the people of Gaza have gone without any shipments of fuel, food, water, medicine, and other essentials. Disease is spreading, supplies are dwindling, people are dying. And I was horrified by the images of death and destruction in the Al Ali hospital. Civilians in Gaza desperately need core services and supplies, and for that we need rapid, unimpeded humanitarian access. We need food, water, medicine, and fuel now. We need it at scale, and we need it to be sustained.
And for his part, political analyst Hamoud Salhi from California said that 20 trucks of humanitarian aid that are scheduled to be funneled to the Palestinian people are not enough. Let's listen to him.
It's not enough. We're talking about 2.3 million population. We're talking about collective punishment. We're talking about major human disaster. This is not just the Arab world media stating this or the world community stating this. It's actually the United Nations, Human Rights Watch, Human Rights Organization. All of them have pointed out that the Gaza needs help and big help. 20 is not enough, and certainly considering the damages that we've seen there. We've seen the hospital being bombarded. The latest massacre is a great example of that. We're seeing more than 1 million people now displaced, and we're seeing no water, no electricity, nothing, no food. All of this required a huge endeavor, and 20 trucks are not enough.
This came as the American NGO Human Rights Watch has said that the Zionist blockade on Gaza is exposing Palestinian children and other Palestinian civilians to serious dangers, calling for an immediate end to the illegal siege. Said Boughazir reports again.
In a statement published on its website, Human Rights Watch underlined that the Zionist government must immediately lift the blockade of the Gaza Strip, which is exposing Palestinian children and other civilians to grave dangers. The collective punishment of an entire population is a war crime. In this respect, the NGO adds that the occupation authorities must authorize the entry into the Gaza Strip of food, medical aid, fuel, electricity, and water, and authorize the exit of wounded and sick civilians to receive medical treatment elsewhere. The Zionist bombardments and the total blockade have exacerbated the chronic humanitarian crisis caused by the 16-year illegal closure of Gaza, where 80% of the population is dependent on humanitarian aid, said the organization. The situation will result in the deaths of countless children and sick children, as well as many other civilians in need of medical care, said Bill van Esveld, Associate Director of the Children's Rights Division at Human Rights Watch. Also, the lack of medical equipment, supplies and medicines is causing avoidable deaths in hospitals in the Gaza Strip. The Director General of the Ministry of Health in Gaza, Midhat Abbas, told Human Rights Watch that more than 60% of patients are children.
On the instructions of the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the National Community Abroad has asked all its embassies and diplomatic missions abroad to cancel all preparations for the festivities to commemorate the anniversary of the glorious November Revolution, as well as related ceremonies in solidarity with the Palestinian people, according to a ministry press release issued on Thursday. This decision by the President of the Republic reflects the solidarity of the Algerian people and state with our Palestinian brothers in the besieged Gaza Strip, who are facing an unprecedented aggression against them. Algeria's permanent representative to the UN, Ammar bin Jum'a, has reaffirmed Algeria's firm condemnation of the Zionist aggression against the Palestinian people and urged the United Nations Security Council to put an immediate end to the ongoing tragedy in Gaza. In a speech to the Security Council at an emergency meeting on the situation in Palestine, Ammar bin Jum'a strongly reiterated Algeria's unchanging position in favor of the Palestinian question.
Algeria strongly condemned the deliberate attack on civilians in the Gaza Strip by the occupying forces, resulting in thousands of casualties. We condemn also, in the strongest word, the airstrike against the Ahli Anglican Hospital that resulted on the death of nearly 500 civilians. There can be no justification for targeting hospitals, clinics, medical personnel, and UN facilities. International law protects this critical infrastructure. We should strongly condemn any violation of these rules. No one is above the law.
Thousands of Algerians took to the streets across the country on Thursday to express their solidarity with the people of Gaza, victims of genocide and atrocious crimes perpetrated by the Zionist occupying forces. In this connection, several political parties and civil society organizations called this week on the Algerian people of all categories to take part in popular marches in support of the resistance of the Palestinian people in the face of the genocide and atrocities committed by the Zionist entity, and to reaffirm the unchanged positions of Algeria, its people, and its government towards the Palestinian cause. And the Speaker of the Council of the Nation, Salah Goujil, has taken part alongside a large crowd of Algerians and a head of members of the Council of the Nation in the popular march in support of the Palestinian people with a view to denouncing the barbaric crimes committed by the Zionist entity against the Palestinians of Gaza, according to a press release from the Upper House of Parliament. The Minister of Communication, Mohamed Lagab, has welcomed the Algerian media's coverage of Thursday's nationwide popular marches in support of the Palestinian cause, describing it as exhaustive and professional. In a statement to the press on the sidelines of a plenary session devoted to debates on the government's general policy statement at the Council of the Nation, Mohamed Lagab thanked all Algerian journalists for their positive coverage of the latest developments in occupied Palestine, notably in the Gaza Strip. And hundreds of thousands of people have taken to the streets around the world to express their outrage at the genocide committed by the Zionist entity in Gaza, notably after Tuesday's evening's bombing at a hospital in which hundreds of Palestinians were martyred. From the start of the aggression against Gaza on October 7, the streets of several Arab and Western cities have been shouting their anger and the atrocities perpetrated by the Zionist occupiers. The details in this report by my colleague Saeed Bougazi.
Solidarity actions have been particularly intense since Tuesday evening and the destruction of the Ahli Arabi Al Ma'amdani hospital in the Zaytun district in Gaza, where dozens of Palestinian families had taken refuge. Spontaneous mass demonstrations were organized in Algeria and in other Arab and Western capitals such as Amman, Athens, Tunis, Beirut, Lisbon, Manama, and elsewhere in the wake of this tragedy, which left nearly 500 martyrs and some 600 injured. In Algiers, as in other provinces of the country, thousands of citizens came out on Thursday to take part in a popular march in support of the Palestinian people, victim of barbaric massacres by the Zionist entity, and to demand that the international community intervene urgently to put an end to this murderous aggression. On Wednesday, in front of the Zionist embassy in Amman, around 10,000 demonstrators gathered to demand the expulsion of the Zionist diplomatic mission following the attack on the Al Ahli Arabi hospital. No Zionist embassy on Jordanian territory, chanted the demonstrators. In Bahrain, several activists also gathered in front of the Zionist embassy in Manama, calling on their country to sever its ties with the Zionist entity. In Tunisia, thousands of demonstrators gathered in solidarity with the Palestinian people, condemning Western support for Zionism, while hundreds of people waving Palestinian flags took part in a demonstration in Beirut, Lebanon. In Baghdad, hundreds of people demonstrated near an entrance to the Green Zone, a fortified sector of the Iraqi capital, where foreign embassies are located, including that of the United States. In Damascus, the Syrian capital, hundreds of people waving Palestinian flags gathered near the parliament building, while thousands of Egyptians also took to the streets on Wednesday in various cities across the country. In Yemen, a massive demonstration in support of the Palestinians took place in the capital Sana'a, and hundreds of people also demonstrated in Taiz and Ma'rib.
And finally, the ambassador of the State of Palestine to Algeria, Faiz Abu Aita, has expressed his recognition following the Algerian people's outpouring of solidarity for the just Palestinian cause during his participation in the genocide march organized in Algiers. This historic march is a clear expression of the Algerian people's solidarity with their Palestinian brothers, who is a victim of the Zionist occupiers' despicable crimes, Abu Aita said to APS. He added that this march is a cry for justice to reaffirm the position of support and solidarity of the Algerian people and government with the Palestinian brothers. With this, we come to the end of it. Time now for a weekly program or special program devoted to the cause in Palestine and the aggressions on Gaza by my colleague Asya Bakar. I'll meet you again tomorrow for a fresh edition of our news bulletin. Thank you.
Western media has majorly depicted the ongoing aggression on Gaza in the form of a shocking attack on the Israeli occupation. The coverage was largely in line with Western foreign policy trends regarding the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, which do not describe the occupation for what it is, while removing the character of resistance or national liberation from the Palestinian resistance movement. Many of these coverages were sugar-coated with an explicit emotional tone when it came to the Israelis, as was evident in written and spoken expressions in a clear propaganda that serves the Israeli agenda. This comes while the Hamas media office denounced the Western media coverage that does not show the reality of the atrocities committed by the Israeli occupation against the Palestinians, stressing that the media office of Hamas is working on showing the reality of the massacre committed against Palestinians in Gaza as it is.
Actually, we are calling all medias in West countries, in Arab countries, in African countries, in Asia countries. We are talking with them. We are explaining our stand, and we are making contacts with many countries in diplomacy field to explain what we are facing in Gaza Strip. We are facing great actions and great aggression on our people.
Flagrant bias of the Western media in line with their government's position did not prevent streets to be flooded by protesters waving Palestinian flags and calling for the end of the Israeli occupation of Palestinian territories. Thousands of pro-Palestinian protesters gathered in the U.S. Capitol this week, marching past the White House to hear chants of a free Palestine as the death toll continued to climb in the genocide committed against Palestinians in Gaza. Across the country, Americans have held pro-Palestinian protests with crowds gathering in Los Angeles, New York, and Michigan, home to one of the largest populations of Arabs and Arab diaspora in the United States. In the United Kingdom, rallies took place in Manchester in northern England, Edinburgh and Glasgow in Scotland, and London amid police warnings against anyone showing support for the Palestinian resistance. Demonstrations in support of Palestine also took place in Switzerland's capital, Geneva, in northwestern Italy, and in the Irish capital, Dublin. Meanwhile, thousands marched in solidarity with the Palestinian people in France, defying the government's flagrant ban of pro-Palestine demonstrations. In fact, several politicians around the world resigned due to their government's position by the side of the Israeli occupation, denying the rights of the Palestinians to peace, security, and fundamental rights. Among these officials was Liam Jones, a British former Labour MP living in Wales, who resigned this week from the UK Labour Party because of Keir Starmer's support for the Israeli aggression against the Palestinians. In her letter of resignation from the party, Ms. Jones said, "The last straw has been Starmer's explicit support for the Israeli collective punishment of the population of Gaza, despite this being a war crime, a fact of which he should have been fully aware of." She went on saying, "When I joined the Labour Party in 1974, we opposed apartheid in South Africa. Now it is not allowed even to mention that the Israeli occupation is an apartheid state, a view endorsed by Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, as well as those with experience of apartheid in South Africa." Meanwhile, Cliff Haswell, a former chair of Cardiff North Constituency Labour Party, has also resigned. In his letter of resignation, he said, "Sadly, the response to the recent escalation of violence in the Middle East has exposed the Labour Party's complete abandonment of its moral authority and any sense of duty to defend the most oppressed." He said, as the party leader gives unequivocal support to the Israeli occupation in its clear mission to eradicate Palestine, he has committed the entire Labour Party to this evil cause, not in my name, he said. He went on saying, in a stunning disregard for international law, the Israeli occupation is to be uncritically supported in continuing with apartheid, blockades, expropriation of land, and now a crime against humanity through the starving and bombing of 1 million children into oblivion. Irish MP Richard Boyd condemned the silence and reservation of his government when it comes to Israeli crimes against Gaza, stressing that bombarding Gaza and cutting water and food from the population is a flagrant war crime that cannot be sugarcoated with words like unacceptable.
Taoiseach, you said it is not okay for Israel to attack civilians, attack civilian infrastructure, to threaten to starve the people of Gaza. It most certainly isn't okay. It's a war crime. The Israeli government have brazenly, publicly and openly declared their intention to commit a war crime and have commenced that war crime against the people of Gaza, saying that they intend to starve of food, electricity, water, 2.2 million people. That is a war crime under the 4th Geneva Convention. They are raining down thousands of the most sophisticated missiles known to humanity onto the most densely populated area in the world, carrying the certainty that almost every missile will incur civilian casualties, will and are destroying the infrastructure, the water infrastructure, the energy, making Gaza uninhabitable.
The ongoing aggression on Gaza is not the first aggression that witnesses Western MPs as standing in the face of their biased governments to claim the right of Palestinians to a state, peace, security, and humanitarian assistance. Another British MP, Andy MacDonald, criticised last March his country for trading with the Israeli occupation despite the latter's theft of Palestinian resources to carry out commercial deals with other countries and crimes against Palestinians in the West Bank.
In the West Bank town of Hawara, over 400 settlers, backed by Israeli soldiers, torched Palestinian homes, businesses and vehicles and killed 37-year-old Sama Aktesh in what senior IDF commanders have called a pogrom. Israel's Finance Minister Smotrich, who describes himself as a fascist homophobe, openly said Hawara should be wiped out. Mr. Speaker, such extremism has given licence by a lack of international accountability. So will the Minister, if he agrees with the rule of international law, commit to banning all goods sourced from Israeli settlements illegally built on occupied Palestinian land?
During the week, Palestinian UN Representative Riyad Mansour said at the Security Council that Palestinians are not subhumans and the airstrikes are nothing but a flagrant war crime taking place in defiance of international law. He deplored the fact that Western media and governments start reacting and condemning only when Israelis feel a small proportion of what Palestinians have been taking for long decades.
Regrettably, history for some media and politicians start when Israelis are killed. Our people have endured one deadly year after another. We came to the Security Council month after month, warning of the consequences of Israeli impunity and international inaction. Last October, about a year ago, we stated before the Security Council the Palestinian people will be free one day or another, one way or another. We chose the peaceful way, the one the international community advocates for. Do not let Israel prove us wrong for our sake and theirs. This is not a time to let Israel double down on its terrible choices. This is a time to tell Israel it needs to change course, that there is a path to peace where neither Palestinians nor Israelis are killed. And it is the one diametrically opposed to the one Israel is embarked on.
He also disclaimed Israeli allegations and justification for the blockade on Gaza and on the ongoing assault, stressing that when Israel's supporters say that it is defending itself, they are in fact giving the Israeli occupation a green light to kill and add to the suffering of Palestinians in Gaza.
Israel keeps saying the blockade and repeated assaults on Gaza are to destroy Hamas, military capabilities, and ensure security. Clearly and expectedly, its blockade and assaults accomplished neither. The only thing they did accomplish was inflicting terrible suffering on an entire civilian population. It is time for an immediate end to the violence and the bloodshed, and it is time to end this blockade and to open a political horizon. When Israel now tries to justify yet another assault by the same faulty premise, no one should say or do anything to encourage it down this path. We know only too well that the messages about Israel's right to defend itself will be interpreted by Israel as license to kill, to pursue on the very path that led us here. 370, and the number is rising by the moment, of Palestinians that have been killed already in one day, including children, some barely a few months old. Entire families were killed in their sleep. Will this bring security? Will this advance peace? Where is the international protection the Palestinian people is entitled to when the occupying power violates international law and harms those it is obliged to protect? Aren't Palestinians' lives worth saving? The Palestinian civilians killed, the Palestinian children killed in occupied Palestine could have been spared. Isn't that a moral and legal obligation and a contribution to peace? Why nothing is done when those killed are Palestinians?